Ready to roll? We have a quorum. It's 1 o'clock, and we're ready to start business. We have a motion to accept the minutes from January 26th, 2021. Dave, second. Stu. Matt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Minutes passed. We're going to start with public safety first. We're going to move to the top of the agenda because they have a vaccine pod this afternoon. So, Tim or Glenn, would you like to start?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Well, thanks for moving us up so we can get over there and get the pod going this afternoon. Just a couple of quick grant project updates. Obviously, with COVID restrictions starting to drop back off a little bit, we're going to get moving on our radio projects again. So all in all, I think to date, we're about $1.5 million into that, which has all been grant funded. And we're continuing to push that forward. So we're excited to get the rest of the radio project going, which will do some of the other frequencies we haven't got to touch yet and get us back on track there. All of our spending is up to date with all of our grant programs. We just closed out our FY19 PSAP grant and got our full reimbursement back from that for the state, which was $147,000 and change, and just went ahead and finished the application for the FY20 PSAP, which is usually out anywhere July, August. Just came out like 3 weeks ago. So that's how far back the state is on that right now. So we'll find out the allocation that we get on that. Hopefully very soon. We're being told that's coming. So as far as all of our grants, everything is up to date and we're still moving forward. The other thing we had is proposed adoption of the comprehensive emergency management plan, which was sent out earlier this month to all of our stakeholders, local officials, department heads. We did get some feedback back from that and made a couple of changes. Most of the questions surrounded including the public health emergency response plans within that. The comprehensive emergency management plan is meant to be a relatively small guidebook. So there are a lot of annexes to that. So a lot of the public health plans, the bigger plans, are not included in that plan. They're really just annexes or add-ons. So there are some contact updates. Other than that, there's not much change since last year. A couple of ICS changes in there, but nothing else other than that. So we're just looking for the committee to adopt that based on the changes that we receive feedback on, and we're going to go ahead and hopefully move that forward to the board so we can get full adoption for this year's version.
Do you have a motion to move the plan forward? The full board? Sure. Matt, second. Sue? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll move that on to the full board. Next up, Tim.
All right, so the only other thing we had was revisiting the discussion we had at the end of last year, which was proposing the grade change for our per diem staff, which are currently a grade 10 on the grade schedule, moving them to the grade 13 equivalent with our full-time staff, or as close to equivalent as we're going to get with our full-time staff. They're just that difference between the grade 13 on the grade schedule and the union pay for the full-time employees is 2 cents. So we want to keep that as close to equivalent as possible. So we were asked to table that until union negotiations are over. So now that being said, earlier this week, I believe the contract was finally signed and everything is done. So we just wanted to revisit that so we can get some per diems hired and hopefully get them in training.
So the difference between with the upgrade with the per diem and the full-time is 2 cents per hour?
Correct. If we brought them up to a grade 13, the difference between the grade 13 non-union schedule and our current union schedule is 2 cents an hour. And
if you don't have the part-timers, who would fill in, a full-timer at overtime?
Correct. Yep, full-timers at overtime.
Thanks. We'd move this to finance, Deb?
I don't think it needs to go to finance. It's already to the full board.
Okay.
Was it budgeted for, Brian? At
Yeah.
the lower rate or the higher rate?
Oh, I'm on the comprehensive plan, I'm sorry.
This is the,
personnel. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking I'm the next step.
do we go to finance?
Just go to personnel first is my
Personnel.
question. Well, it's not changing the
I don't,
staffing pattern
You're
or
changing the
number
grade.
of personnel.
Great.
I thought he said he was changing the grade.
Just the grade.
So I would say finance, not personnel.
I thought they changed the grade to went to personnel.
Personnel.
I'll take it, no problem.
I think it goes to finance.
I just want to make sure it goes through the right committees.
Yeah.
But
Actually, establishing grade is personnel. Establishing the money goes with the grade is finance.
Right? Now, I could be wrong, but I think the way this used to work was when you had a grade change, you go to personnel, see if the money was there. If there was, then it went to personnel to approve the change.
That's
There's
kind
no
of,
sense in going through personnel and deciding to make a big change if you haven't got the money to pay for it. But maybe Melissa
Right.
knows more than I do. She's getting ready.
well, that actually makes the most sense, but we do usually go right to personnel to establish the grade. And then it does usually go to finance for approval.
Okay, sounds
And just
good.
to clarify, I think, Tim, you did say currently the rate for the communications officers, the per diem is $19.05 an hour, right?
Correct, that's
And they'll be going up to $22.17.
correct.
Okay.
so the verdict is,
Personnel?
Personnel, that's finance.
So do we decide that we're okay with a grade change? I thought it's the personnel director who determines what position should be at what grade.
Yes.
Am I wrong on that, Melissa?
Yeah, usually the personnel director suggests where she thinks that this position should be placed on the title by grade schedule. Like Tim mentioned, this was brought up at the beginning of this budget year. So I was actually involved with this whole conversation. And it did seem like the grade 13 made the most sense for this position as far as the title by grade. And now it would be equal to the contract, which is in the process of being signed.
And Tim, the per diem employees go through the same training as the full-time?
Correct. Same training, same hours, same job they're performing.
If it goes to personnel and then gets approved, does it then go to finance?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So do I have a motion to move this to personnel to move the per diem employees to a grade 13?
So moved.
Dave, second? Do I have a second here? Sue, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move the grade change to the personnel committee. Tim, anything else?
Oh, that's it. Unless you have any questions.
Questions for Tim? Tim, I'd like to thank you, the public health staff, and everyone else for the pods this weekend. They were great again. I got several phone calls about it, and continue the great work with it. It was easy. I was in and out in 25 minutes. My arm is still sore, but I can't do anything about that.
Appreciate that. Yeah, the team has done an amazing job. We did just announce, just prior to this meeting, that we did get another batch of 65 and older of 200 doses, which registration will open tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. On the website, and we'll open the helpline at that time too. So the staff from ADRC in our office and DSS will be working together to help book appointments for those that don't have internet at that point. And then obviously it'll be open online for sign up too. So we're looking forward to continuing those efforts. Public Health's doing an amazing job over there. The EMS partnership has really worked out very well. It's been a great support with all the, with them in there doing the vaccinations. And then obviously it takes an awful lot to run the pod over there. Personnel for buildings and grounds, DPW, the volunteers that are coming in and help run the tables and those kind of things. So it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Tim. I'm doing a great job with that. Next up is Bob. Are you on, Coroner? Is Bob on?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Go
Yes,
ahead, Bob.
yes, I am. Well, two issues. There was a rate increase this year from Dr. Sikorica's office for autopsies. A letter went out in September to the county administrator and all the coroners were CC'd on it. I did follow up with the county administrator to make sure he got the letter from the office. But I guess there was a mix-up and I'm not sure if it ever went to budget or whatever, but I received a call from the supervisor's office that they weren't aware of the rate increase. So that was sent in time to get to the budget, hopefully, and somehow that, I'm not sure where the mix-up came. So that's on the rate increase for autopsies. On the other issue is the storage fees. As you know, Kilmer's has a cooler and they've been storing bodies that we don't have room for at the morgue at the hospital. They were charging us $50 a day storage. They called me one night after I sent a body there and said they were going to raise the rates to 75 because they've already done it in Warren County. And they felt that it was necessary because they've had to clean the cooler. They've had to get up in the middle of the night and meet a funeral home. They've had to take bodies out of there and bring them to the hospital for the autopsy at 7. So they felt that raising it to 75 would be something that would be fair to them. So I said, well, you can't just tell me, you got to put it in a letter and we'll send it to the Board of Supervisors. On a good note, we probably won't be using them as much starting next month. I've been on a committee with the hospital and they finally have the final plan. They're going to be putting in morgue storage for 12 instead of the current 3. So there'll be plenty of room at the hospital. They're going to have lifts, they're going to have shelving, so they'll have room once the construction is done for 12. And they expect to start that this month or next month, and they hope to have it done in a couple months. So even though there's a rate increase for the storage, I think it'll be short term because I don't think we'll be using them that often. I hope.
That, Bob, what was the increase for the autopsies?
I don't have that paperwork right in front of me.
They went like 1150 to 1300.
Yeah, because on here, it's 1,300 on the email. And that's a rate change from,
Right. In 2020, he was charging 1,150.
so we'd,
That's by contract, I believe. We don't set a rate for that one. I believe.
so what we have then is the refrigeration fees from Kilmer's from $50 to $75 per day.
And I think that would be effective as of January 26th. There's vouchers in already.
Okay. With that. And that would go to finance.
Yes.
Need a motion to change the fees up the fees from $50 to $75 per day for Kilmer's refrigeration. Bob, is transportation still the same?
Yes, that won't change. That'll be the same.
Okay, so the rate increases for refrigeration from 50 to 75 per day, and I need a motion to move it to finance.
So moved.
Dave, do I have a second? Matt? Any discussion? Well, Brian?
Yeah, so we'll discuss the rates in finance, but I think we won't amend the budget as numbers until at this point, you would expect we'd be short money, and we'd probably just do this at the end of the year and move it and catch up at that point. I don't see any reason for us to try to decide what we think that number is going to be at this time of the year.
All in favor? Any further discussion? All in favor of moving to finance? Aye.
Aye.
Anything else, Bob?
Nope, that's it. Good. Thank you very much.
Okay, take care. John Graham?
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Have a good day.
you too. Go ahead, John.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have just two procedure changes here that I wanted to discuss with you guys, see what you thought. The first one, we've discussed before some things about depositions and pictures. A lot of the contractors in the past has been allowed to just sign depositions saying that they did something a certain way or else provide pictures. And it's kind of gotten to a point where a fair number of them think that that's all that they have to do. They could get a permit, take a bunch of pictures and sign a deposition and they're done instead of having to do the inspections. What I'm proposing is something I mentioned before about having it where those are only options after we've discussed it ahead of time. There are some scenarios when those would make sense, but kind of want to rein in the overall encompassing folks have done in the past, so they think they can just continue on again. I don't know if you guys want to discuss that first, or if you want me to go on to the next part, discuss it all at the end, or
Would you like to discuss the deposition and the pictures now, or wait till the end?
Is the second subject related?
no.
Then let's finish this one up first.
Okay. So what's discussion on deposition and pictures? So John, you want to have prior approval on?
Yeah, it would be something that we would add to our applications, just as not really a forewarning, but just giving a heads up that, you know, if they want to approach it by depositions or by pictures, they'd have to contact us first and get the, you know, approval on that before they just go ahead and do a bunch of them. So,
Dana?
John, I was under the impression Dana half-asked this question a few months ago, and we were told contractors can't provide photographs. Did I misunderstand that at the time?
well, at that time, I said the same thing here, that we would prefer it where it was discussed first. What Supervisor Half had asked about was basically setting out some scenarios that were across the board. You can just go ahead and do pictures and that would cover it. And I'd mentioned at that time that if we discuss it ahead of time, that would work better. So I'm just bringing that up to say that we'd like to move forward, making that official, put it on our applications so that people know that ahead of time. So.
John?
You know, I've been in the business for 30 years and I've never taken pictures for permits. I don't know when that started even.
I'm not sure on that one.
I definitely believe that it ought to be discussed with you in only certain circumstances with pictures. I mean, it's, like I said, I've done everything by the book for 30 years and I've never taken pictures to try to get turned into permits, so.
Yeah, I've reached out to some of our neighboring code enforcement offices too, just to see how they handle different scenarios. And they said that even deposition is a very rare thing to do, and pictures in this, you know, the same way. So,
Dana, do you have a question?
Yeah, are we caught up on the building permit process now to the point where initiating this is going to slow that process down, or where are we now with our building permits? Like, what's the time delay at this point?
some of the areas are down to like a week. We do have one territory that's 2 to 3 weeks. So.
Well, what territory is that long, and why is some territory? Why would one territory be 1 week and others be several weeks?
Just depends on the workload. It varies over the year. Different spots have more projects going on than other ones.
So who's several weeks out?
Hebron, Hartford, and the septics are all covered by the same person at this moment. Tomorrow, the test for the final certification of our 2 new guys is tomorrow. So if everything goes well with that, we're going to be divvying up the territories again so that the person doing the septic won't have those additional loads. So.
Okay, so, but initiating, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dana.
Well, again, I'm just curious, will initiating these restrictions on photographs make those timelines longer at this point? It seems like we're not caught up and we're still in the winter time. I would want to see us get caught up before we add any further restrictions on builders at this time.
These are restrictions that we've been basically telling people as we're going along. I just want to make it official and actually add it to the application. The depositions and pictures aren't the way to do it, and we've been telling people that. I just wanted to make it official, let you guys know about it and see what you thought. So.
Okay, I'm opposed. Okay.
Dana Half, make a comment.
Sorry, John, I just want to get this clear. I'm being a little dense on this whole thing. So currently, you don't really want to use depositions and photographs. You don't have to. What you're saying is, if in certain circumstances, it's a very small pour and they can only get concrete that day, or there's an impending storm and you can't get there in time, they let you know ahead of time what they're going to do. They take pictures and it's okay, but you have to pre-approve that. There could be an instance where they want to do that and you're going to say, no, it's too big a job. We got to be there. You just got to wait. It's giving you the option on allowing that in certain circumstances with contractors you know and what they're doing. Am I following that right?
That is correct.
All right. I think that's a reasonable way to proceed. That's just my opinion.
Brian?
Well, my question's on the deposition. A deposition is usually after the fact. How do you get a deposition approved before the fact? Because if you're going to accept the deposition, you're not coming to look at it. So that's what I guess that's the part I don't understand.
Think of an example. If somebody, usually we'll take both at the same time. So say somebody wants to pour a footing and, they already have the concrete coming and we're supposed to have 24-hour notice for inspections. They're supposed to call us ahead of time. Sometimes we'll have somebody call up that morning. Hey, I got concrete coming at 11. Can you make it out? We can't make it out. So in a situation like that, we might say, okay, take pictures of it. Those pictures, unless they go around and take a picture of every single bar and every single tie, won't show us everything that we need. So we would also say, we'll take a deposition from you saying, you did this, 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 and this. And then it's notarized. They sign it in front of the notary. It just gives us more coverage on our side that they're saying they did it. Each one of those ties was done correctly, all of that we wouldn't be able to see from a picture necessarily.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sure.
Any other questions for John?
Dana Half has a question.
Go ahead, Dana.
John, this sounds a little bit contradictory. You want to put on a restriction, but in a Hartford area, you are backlogged. The two kind of don't jive. I would think that until a backlog is caught up with, you would remove restrictions and allow photographic evidence.
No, he's saying they don't allow those now, and he wants to allow those in certain things at his discretion. Aren't you allowing more things to happen? Isn't that what I'm reading? I'm missing something.
Matt, why are you answering?
No.
I'm asking for a clarification.
Stop answering,
I'm sorry to offend you.
Excuse me, but John, am I correct that you said you wanted to stop the practice of contractors feeling that they can send you a photograph? So if you never started it, why would you stop it? There's a contradiction in what I'm hearing. I'm a little bit confused.
It's been allowed in the past. Over the last couple of years, we've been trying to rein it back in. I wanted to add it to the applications just to make it official, saying, you know, this needs to be discussed beforehand. So this is a restriction that we've been trying to work in. I just want to be able to get the okay from you guys to say you're on board with it, that it's not going to be a surprise if somebody comes up to you and says, you know, we used to send pictures. We don't anymore, or we can't anymore. This is a practice that in the past was allowed as a convenience, apparently. And it's kind of blown up to the point where now some people think they don't have to call us for inspections as long as they take pictures, and that they can just sign a deposition and make it all go away. So.
Well, I had asked you previously if you could come up with a list of items where photographic evidence would be okay. And I think we should remove restrictions instead of placing on restrictions. We're behind. Our economic development is behind. We've added more people to code enforcement. We're behind. I think until we are no longer behind, we should remove restrictions. If there's contractors that have a long history under the county of doing things properly, you shouldn't treat them as if they are a fly-by-night contractor. We do have some fly-by-nights, and I think that they deserve having a close eye, but not necessarily treating everybody as if they need, you know, that much scrutiny. I think that you could come up with a list of some things that really are not that critical, that photographic evidence would be okay. And I think that should go far into the future as well.
Dave? So John, you have 2 people graduate from the course tomorrow, which means they could go out and start doing inspections on their own. Is that correct?
Correct. One of them is doing just fire inspections. There's going to be a little bit more in-field training for that person, but the other one is building inspections. That would be this scenario.
So wouldn't part of the solution be to add this person to the area that's a backlog to help catch up?
That is what's going to be happening, yes.
And wouldn't that reduce the need to have pictures and stuff where we could actually take a physical look at what's going on down there? I mean, I know we have a lot of reputable contractors here, but there's also some that take shortcuts. And this
Yes,
is what
there
they're
are.
designed to prevent.
Yes, there are.
Bob?
I think we're making a bigger problem here than we've got. The problem is that some of the contractors have gotten in the habit of just taking pictures and sending them in saying here, instead of calling for an inspection. They should be calling for an inspection. We should be inspecting it when we need to, but if there's things that they, you know, like Matt's example of, you know, a quick order of cement or something like that, if they call them up and say, hey, can I take a picture? Then say, yeah, you can take a picture. That's expediting it. But I think the problem is not with the process of taking a picture, but the fact that some guys have absorbed this as the way they're doing business. And that shouldn't be the case anyway.
We have one person who remodeled an entire house. It was gutted down to the studs when they bought it. Remodeled the entire house and thought that a deposition would cover it. So this is the stuff I'm trying to stop. And actually, that saves time too if they know this ahead of time, because then we don't have to go and track down everything for them and figure out what they need to do to prove it to us and all of that.
Matt?
John, aren't you just asking to codify this and put it in the application so that you and the contractors are all on the same page? It's not going to slow things down or speed things up. You're still going to make the call, but it just makes it so everyone's on the same page as a starting point. Is that what this is all about?
Correct.
Any further questions for John? Do I have
I had a further question, Don.
Okay, Dana.
Yeah, the concern I have is that we're looking at this in two different perspectives, where we're being described as this is something as a way to streamline the process, codify the process, and somehow this is going to be better for the builders. While we've been told over the last few months that we've got a 4 to 6 week backlog on permits, I think builders look at this and say this is just another example of an additional layer of codification, if you will. It's going to slow down the process even further. I think that's a concern that many are going to communicate to us.
Which is why I'm bringing it to you guys, because there's things that have been done in the past that shouldn't have been done in the past, and this is one of them. So just trying to correct things and get them going in the right direction again.
But I look at photographs as being something that would actually be pretty valuable to do right now to speed up the process. John, you and I talked about it last week. You're behind in a lot of different areas. Fire inspections haven't been completed in the town of Kingsbury. We have 500 multifamily dwellings that did not get inspected last year. Yet we're worrying about codification of language related to speeding up the building permit process while we're completely ignoring other areas that need to be addressed.
No.
I guess I'd approach spending too much time on this kind of matter. Well, can you agree with the fact we haven't done any fire inspections in the town of Kingsbury, John?
I wouldn't say we haven't done any. As you and I discussed, we are behind on
You did
that.
4 out of what, 500?
Can I answer, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you want to say that we haven't done anything and we're behind on that, no,
How many have you done, John? 4 out of 500?
Please allow me to answer the question that you asked. We aren't sitting back doing nothing on this stuff, okay? There's multiple steps that I am trying to get in place. This is one of many to try to streamline the process. But to say, and I'm going to get the wording wrong, but whatever it was that you said before there, saying something along the lines of, you know, we're not doing things to get stuff done, that is not accurate at all.
I don't think that was my wording. I think my wording was we're creating codification.
Yep. Lost you, Dana. Dana Hogan?
Yeah, nothing is coming through right now, Dana. Can't hear you, so.
Dana?
Language to make it more challenging and putting even further behind than where we already are.
That whole last thing you just said didn't come through, so.
Yeah, you were, Dana, we didn't hear your answer.
My point was, I didn't say I don't believe you're not doing anything or not getting this work done, but it feels like we're codifying language and creating more of a backlog to builders right now. With the concern I've been hearing is that we're 4 to 6 weeks behind in building permits, and that other areas of where we should be doing in code enforcement offices. 2 years ago, Donna Kingsbury sent a letter to Washington County indicating the concern we had related to the lack of fire inspections in our community. John, just this past week, and I understand you're behind, and I get it, I do. But the reality is, we're not getting our fire inspections done. To say that we are getting some done, well, that's being pretty generous. We got 4 out of 500 plus. So that's a really, really low percentage in terms of concern that I have with the safety of what we should be doing in code enforcement with public safety and preventing fires in the future in this community.
No, it's not 4 out of 500. You said you have 500 units, and we've done 58 of those. That's what I had said in that email, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, because I misread.
You cut out again.
Dana, you're in and out again, Dana.
You're not, nothing's coming through.
Dana, we couldn't hear your last answer.
Is it all right if I speak for a second?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
What has been done in the past has been a mess. I am trying to fix this. All of us over here are trying to fix this. I said at the beginning, there's going to be all kinds of complaints. I admit we're behind in so many different ways with the fire inspections. We are working towards getting those things solved. We have an additional person for the fire inspections. So we will now have 2 as opposed to the 1 partial that we had before. I'm trying to work on procedural things to streamline the procedures so that we can get things in and out quicker. We were at 4 to 6 weeks in some areas before. We are not there anymore, which I said was going to be the case. We can't. I came to folks before and said we need 3 people. And we have 1, and I am grateful for that, and we're improving everything with that. I'm not here asking for 2 more, but I'm just saying there's a reason why I asked for 3 before, which I get it. That's not an option right now. We're doing what we can to streamline things over here, and anybody out in the field or anything that doesn't see that is more than welcome to talk to me about it. But if they're saying that we're not, they're wrong. So
John, with the additional 2 coming on board, you anticipate being caught up with your building permits? Within 1 to 2 weeks, you'll be able to turn them around? What's the...
Our goal has always been 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay. So you're close to that when the 2 new people come on board?
We're doing that right now. We're at like 3 weeks for the max at the moment, so.
And then with the additional 1 coming on board who's going to focus on fire inspections, what's your plan over in the next little bit to cut down on that backlog with the new fire inspector?
Well, we're going to have 2 people now that can do it as opposed to the 1. We're going to be working on our database to get that caught up. I've reached out to Laura Chadwick, and she sent that over today so that we can have a more accurate number on our apartment units. Eventually, I'm going to be coming to you folks to see about possibly setting up an apartment registry where people will have to reach out to us instead of us having to track everybody down. That would streamline the process. There are things in play that are in the plans to get caught up. So, but it is certainly not something that is going to happen in a month. So.
Thank you. Brian?
So clarify a couple things. So we got 2 people coming on board, and we haven't seen how the system's going to work yet with these 2 people on board. And we just came we are out of the pandemic yet, but last year we got behind. Pandemic didn't help us at all. That was a problem. So I think we need to see how these 2 people work out. And we may want to look at fire inspections. You got twice as many people doing them. We should be able to get through them. If we have to charge for it, if we have to do whatever it takes to make this happen, I'm open to that. And if you want to bring a plan back to us that would make that all work out, I'm happy with that. We just have to see how that would work if we're going to go that route. In the past, we've talked about charging for it to pay for the people that do it. And the problem's been that they may not let you in, it may make it go longer, and all those questions. I remember all those discussions. And if the board really wants to look at this hard, we're going to have to put some teeth in it that says we're going to support through whatever measures it takes that those people are going to let us in, they're going to get them done, or they're going to lose their certificate of occupancy or something. There has to be some reason that they let us in. And if we have to charge to make that happen, that's fine. If we can keep doing it and it works the way it is, that's fine. But we do need to catch up on these things. You got to remember, we can be as lax as we want to be on code enforcement to a degree, but that only gets us in trouble with liability when something goes wrong. So there's a happy medium here, and we need to find it. The other thing is the stamp from engineers. We have to accept the stamp of the engineer that what he said he's done is legit work. All we have to do is verify it matches what the stamp paperwork says. They're going back 2 or 3 times for the same thing because somebody doesn't like the engineer. That's the problem. Hopefully, we've gotten beyond that. I'm not sure we have. But if we have, 2 extra people and getting by those things, we should be going a lot faster. And my goal would be a week, not 2 to 4. But that's just me.
Any other questions for Sue?
John, it's coming into spring, and there's been a lot of property sold in Washington County. And I know that, having the additional 2, but it sounds like you're going, maybe 1 will go into the fire inspector. There's a lot of new people in town. And a lot of property that's just been sold that are going to want additions. Are you ready for that?
Yep.
It's spring, and they're going to want to be, contractors are anxious to go.
Yep. We're back to where we're supposed to be as far as that 2 to 4 weeks thing.
Yeah, and the photographs, John, just to go back to the photographs a bit, 2 years ago, our IT department totally changed over because of the improvement and changes in technology. I'm not so sure that code couldn't use photographs to be able to do things because they're fairly accurate, and at least it gives you a day where you could go out. If you couldn't get there the first day, a couple photographs, and you get there 2 days later, allows that project to keep going. I'm not opposed to photographs. I think they have their place. I know it's not a thing that contractors used 10 years ago, but we didn't carry around cell phones in our back pocket. I had the capabilities of taking pictures of tie rods and basements and everything else. So something to think about. Thank you, John. Thank your department for me, please.
Isn't the situation is not so much use of photographs, but to the extent some are using those, isn't that what we should be controlling, what it can be used for and what it can't be used for? Is that more accurate, John? I mean, like Bob mentioned, someone takes photographs of the whole place and it never has any on-site inspection. Should we be controlling what they can take pictures of, not just a blanket take pictures?
There's not really any specific entire part like insulation inspection or deck footing inspection or something like that, that we can comfortably say, yes, go ahead and just send in pictures as a blanket statement, which is why we have the option. If you call us first and we can discuss the scenario, then we might take the pictures on it. This is something that like nobody around us does. It does not, in most cases, does not give you all that you need to be able to see in the detail you need to see it to know that it was done for the code or to the codes.
So what's your recommendation, John?
My recommendation is that we put it on the applications saying that if you want to take pictures or do a deposition on it, call us first. We'll discuss it and agree to it beforehand in an attempt to stop the people that just go ahead and do it and come back after the fact, hoping. So.
Matt?
I want to move what John says, right, with that wording right there. John, you're telling me that will increase efficiency by getting things done as well and as code possible, as quickly as possible. So I would support doing that. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? John, you're opposed?
She said no, so I don't know what that means.
John? Did
I'm
you?
not opposed. No,
Okay.
I'm for it.
You were just slow on the draw.
Yeah. Thank you. John, next item.
Yes, this again is something that would help with efficiency once the engineers get on board and realize this is how it's going to go, if you guys agree to it. We have checklists on our applications that say all of the stuff that people are supposed to be submitting. We are routinely, especially with septics, getting basically half applications, and we have to keep writing up letters after reviewing it saying we still need this, 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 and this from you. My proposal is, and it's kind of a harsh one, so if you say no, I get it, but my proposal is if we get in an application and they haven't taken the time to go through all of those checklists to make sure that they have what we need, we send it back to them. And just tell them, once you have all the information in those checklists, then please resubmit. Because we're spending a lot of time right now. Could be an hour just getting all the information put together, written up in a letter and sending it back to the engineers, so.
I think it would be important that you tell them what they need on the application.
It is. There's a checklist with everything that they need, and they're just sending stuff in without the information on it. And then we have to go back and say, okay, we need this on here. You didn't put it on there, so.
Dave?
So some of those building permits come through the supervisors of the local town code enforcement. Should we have them initial or sign that checklist to make sure they checked it before it comes to you?
I think that'd just be adding more work to you guys. I think we should just put it right back to the engineers that are sending it in without the information, personally. Because eventually they need the LRCC anyway, so.
Dana Hogan?
John, how long will it take after you guys do the initial review to determine whether or not the material's in the application before you'll turn it back to them? For example, the concern I would have is you could potentially sit on an application for 2 to 4 weeks and then turn around and tell the engineer that they didn't provide you with enough and now they're back to another 4-week wait time. How to propose avoiding that?
That would, we could start doing it, just thinking out loud here, we could start doing it where we do a quick look as soon as it comes in to see if they have everything in there, not necessarily review it to see if it's code compliant, but to see, we could check their checklist. And if they don't have the stuff, we could send it right back at that point. Another thought on that too is hopefully this would get to the point where the engineers would realize we need to do this stuff before we send it in, and it wouldn't be a be a moot point, hopefully after a, shorter period of time. So that they would just know we need to do it before we send it in. But
I could.
Go ahead, Dana.
Your mic cut out again, Dana. It's not working.
Cut out. Sue?
Dana, we didn't hear you.
Yeah, what I was saying is that as long as we could get these back to the hands of the engineers in the event that there's something missing, because ultimately.
You want to put it in the chat?
19 bucks for headset.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Dana.
I agree. Having it sit on our desk for 2 to 4 weeks and then finding out after the fact that they didn't have the information that they needed we would want to avoid that at all possible costs, so it doesn't add 2 to 4 more weeks after we've looked at it. So that's something that we could figure out in-house here, how to, as they come in, do a quick look at it and send it back sooner. So if that's what you were thinking there, Dana, thank you.
Sue?
Septics are pretty important. When people need a septic, they don't want to wait 6 weeks. There's quite a few, I don't know how many engineers there are in Washington County, but is there any way, John, that you could contact them with a letter and let them know that, listen, we're not going to do your work anymore for you. Can you complete the project before you send it in?
Yeah, that would be part of it.
Yeah, most consumers, when they need it, they need it fairly quickly.
Yeah, we do have provisions for, like, if it's an emergency repair or something, but for people that are doing a brand new system, they do have to wait for their turn to come up in the lineup there. But yes, it would be something that we would send out notification first saying, look, this is what our office is now doing. Just as a heads up, please make sure that you have all of these items filled out, otherwise they'll be sent back.
John?
this for engineered sewer systems only, or just for cover all the permits?
At the moment, I'll probably be focusing on the septics because that's the biggest problem. It's pretty clear cut checklist on that one. And we're routinely getting stuff where they really haven't even looked at that list apparently, and we have to go back. So I would say at this moment, do it with the septics, maybe revisit the buildings as we go along, so.
So John, there would be no change to the building permits checklist right now?
As far as the procedure on it, correct. We'd have to revisit it a little bit, make sure it's as clear as it can be. I don't anticipate doing that for a while, and it would be something I'd bring back to you guys and gals when the time came, so.
So this is just for review of the septic checklist?
Yeah, we'll say it that way now, yeah. I wanted to bring up the buildings too, because it might eventually go to that point, but yeah, for right now, I'd say the septics.
Any other questions for John? Do I have a motion to allow John to return the septic engineering reports if they aren't, they don't meet the checklist requirements? Did I say that right, John?
Yep.
Do I have a motion to move that forward? John? Roselle, second? Dave?
I'll second it.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Anything else, John?
Belief of all of you, no. Thank you.
Thank you. I talked to Mike Gray from Alternative Sentencing, and he can't make it today. Is anyone from Dan Shaw? Who's here? You're muted, Dan.
I had a question for John. Is he still on?
John, you still on?
I am.
I don't know, 6 months ago or so, there was discussion about solar farms and cell towers, and that you were instructed not to charge them any fees. And I said that, would you get that in writing from the state? Because I feel we're missing a funding opportunity or a fee opportunity that's been overlooked. And you said you were going to do that, and I have not seen that letter yet.
You haven't gotten that?
We've
Okay.
collected over, I think, $45,000 in fees from solar and cell towers in our town this last year.
Does everybody want a copy, or do you just want me to send one to you?
Well, I don't know.
Dan?
I've never seen it. And you said you were going to get it to me.
Yeah, I thought I'd gotten it to you before that, but not a problem. I will do that as soon as I hang up with you here, so.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, John, why don't you send it to everybody?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else, Dan?
No, I just don't understand why we can charge and you can't. And it's quite a bit of money. So it's not making it. And they are everybody's willing to pay. Everybody understands that that's a fee that they should be paying. Now, then nobody is inspecting these cell towers or these solar farms at all?
I can't vouch for anybody else, but we do not have the jurisdiction as code enforcement officers to do that. They should be getting electrical inspections, which is a third-party thing anyway. But it doesn't really make sense to me either. But as you'll see in the letter, that's what they say. Because if you have a cell tower, you think of the foundation for something like that, there's going to be pretty substantial. We have no jurisdiction over that according to the state, but if you want to build a shed next to it that's over 144 square feet, you better get a permit. Doesn't make sense to me either.
Well, what if you want to add another dish onto the tower? That doesn't need to have any
nothing
notification. You don't get involved at all in that?
No, we have people call us asking about that, and we have a letter that we send out to them referencing where the state says we have no jurisdiction, so.
So you actually get owners of cell towers that want to get a permit, pay for it.
Yes.
Brian?
Yeah, Dan, I don't know whose jurisdiction it's under, but I can remember, it's going back a few years now, when we looked at putting more stuff on the dish on Big Birch, the county that is, not the town. They have all sorts of tests they have to go through as to the shape the tower's in, the amount of capacity and the extra weight load it would carry. There's a whole thing that Tim Hardy could probably tell you about that you have to go through for that, because we had to quit putting stuff on certain ones until we took other things off. So and think about it, building code is about a building that's going to be inhabited. Nobody inhabits a tower or a solar field. So it's totally a different classification. So that's why building code doesn't, they work with COs. You don't need a CO to have a cell tower.
And we were doing solar farms before, and then the state handed down their clarification on the codes, saying that unless it's specifically related to a building, then we have no say over it. But I can send that out to everybody. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anything else for John? Alternative sentencing, Sue Mowry?
So I'm just filling in to observe for Mike, but as far as the updates, we just worked with Tony to come up with a list of costs relating to bail reform, and I'm sure he's probably going to talk about that. So we came up with that list, and we're in the process of gearing up for spring.
Thank you. Yeah, I got an email from Mike, and he sent to Tony bail reform expenses for 2020. What he has in his request for Tony to move forward is $18,215, which were already expended. Anything else, Sue?
Nope, that's it.
Dan, probation?
How you doing? Well, with local courts being back in action, our office is kind of back to normal functioning. We were at a shift schedule to try to distance ourselves with COVID-related matters, but we've gone back to our staff being mostly back to normal, I would say. And we're still distancing in the office the best we can. We have people in the field and out and about, so not everybody is on top of each other here. But we noticed the need. The subpoenas are rolling in to testify now that hearings can be held. Our violation of probation hearings are being scheduled. So things are starting to feel a little bit more normal, even if they might not be. In our office, I talked about some things that I wanted to do for the winter and the spring, myself and the department, and we've begun to do those. In the office, we're working with the IT department on scanning functions for our files, and that's creating our actual hard files here into digital on closure, not on current files, but on closure. We talked about this for a long time, including with the grant. And by doing this a little bit, we'll be able to increase our function in the office and the speed of doing things, but also, like all of you know, the mass storage and space issue that files bring along has become an issue, and it's been an issue for a decade. So for us, we're looking at doing that and minimizing the space that takes up. I've worked with IT a little bit to discuss the idea of e-signatures. We've dealt so much remotely, and when you're talking about discovery reform, so much of our data has actually gone digital. The information we're receiving from police, a lot of the correspondence we're having with other people right now because of COVID, we're looking at a possibility of doing an e-signature, especially on releases of information. Hopefully, if it works out well, other departments could also utilize it. Sometimes we have officers running out to Granville and Whitehall or Cambridge to get a signature and then running back to the office. So hopefully that could minimize some of that. We also discussed the Caseload Explorer program, which we've talked about for years at our department. We're the last in the state to not have that supervision program for probation. It's still something it's not 100% solid for our department or for IT to request from the county to expend those amount of dollars. You're talking around, after over a 3-year period, it's about $100,000. Initial outlay is about 75. There's really good things about the program. There's some things I don't like about the program. It won't totally replace other databases, so there'll be some periods of time where you have overlap. That's something that we're working out with IT. I've scheduled with Audemon Corporation to send us 3 dates so IT can actually interview them, talk about the program. We're just working at it. I'm not sure it's something we're going to bring to you guys as a formal proposal yet, or to the IT committee. We're in the planning phases. It's something that we've talked about for over a decade, and we're just going to continue to talk about it right now. But we're kind of ramping it up a little bit right now. But because of the IT situation that I talked about, there's a possibility of actually reducing some file room space. So it allows me to do some things in the office physically that I'd like to do. And I've discussed more of a safety and security reorganization within our department, our storage of firearms, our storage of evidence. I talked to both IT. Just last week, I talked to the county administrator, and I talked to a head of buildings and grounds about moving those things into a very small file room that would be fobbed, that would be more secure, that we can track who comes in and out of the door. It's much like what the sheriff's department uses for their room. It's something we probably should have done a long time ago, but it's kind of baby steps to get to that point. And something that was kind of on my priority list when I came in. So that's something I'm going to come back to discuss a little bit more with you guys. There's a lot of other stuff that I'd like to discuss in the future, policy-wise, but I think we have to wait for the state to make a couple moves first before we can talk about marijuana issues and what's going to come down the pike for that. But that's my department update for right now.
Brian?
Yeah, Dan, glad to see you doing something on the records, but my question is, do we still have to store them, or can we destroy them, the paper records? And, can we actually get rid of them and just keep them on hard copy, or do we just have to move them somewhere else and store them?
We have a minimum amount of time that we have to store them for. And then after that, there are things that we can actually destroy. The state recommends that we never destroy pre-sentence investigations, but at this point, we are trying to battle whether a digital copy is considered storage of it. So if we can get the state to go along with the fact that a digital copy of that pre-sentence investigation is a formal copy, yeah, we could actually destroy things. So I'm trying to work through all of that to really minimize the footprint that our office is taking up, because it compounds on you every month, and you don't realize it because sometimes you just get files in and you touch them for a couple minutes, you get some correspondence, it gets filed away, and you move on to the next one. But over the course of a month or over 5 months, you look and all of a sudden you added another filing cabinet. So it's not what we're looking to do. It's really not what we were looking to do 10 years ago. I'm happy with the direction that the county's gone, and we've planned this with IT probably for the last 3 years. So I think we're there. We've done a pretty solid dry run of scanning already, and what's in the computer and what's been reviewed by IT is very functional, easy to search, easy to grab data, move it around, manipulate it. If you need to add it to things, IT can help us interface it into other programs. It's been pleasant going through it. I was really scared to jump on board with this, but it's been okay.
Okay, and then with the courts being closed, can you give us an idea of the backlog and what you have to catch up with, or did it just put it on hold and now it's just back to normal?
They have some pretty solid schedules. I know that certain courts are doing virtual. for their appearances. I know, Kingsbury last week, we had an officer going to drop some files off and wanted to stop in the courtroom for a minute, and it was everybody's virtual, as Tony and Mike can attest to. They're distancing but functioning, so they have court calendars and they're ripping through cases, but it's modified. It's a modified functioning. I know in county court we're doing a lot in person, and it's a little different animal, but we feel like we're handling cases and going through. There's definitely a backlog, and there's going to be for a while. The volume for 2021 is going to be real for all of the county agencies that work in the courts. But I think that everybody's kind of excited to be back to semi-normal functioning, and they want to hammer out some work. So I think it's going to be okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Dan, just a quick question about evidence storage and chain of custody. How are you doing it now as opposed to how you want to do it?
Well, right now, it's not going to be much different. We have an evidence locker at this point, and it's in the director's office. I would like a different piece of equipment. I've actually worked with Buildings and Grounds. I might have a safe that will not have to be purchased. It's something that we can reuse from something that the county already has in storage. I will move that within a fobbed room. So besides the fact that if officers have to bring electronic devices to there's 3 people that can put evidence into storage. The officers have to bring that to one of those 3 people. They have to log that evidence in and log it out anytime it moves. This time it'll add a level of security on top of it. So that extra layer will be the fobbed room. And like I discussed with Buildings and Grounds, they do not want their staff anywhere near that room. So they don't want to clean it. They don't want to go in there. If the light bulbs need to be changed, we'll fix it the next day when one of our officers open it for them. They'll fix it. They'll leave. So we'll be adding a layer of security. So for me, I feel a lot more comfortable in there, because right now the biggest thing we store for evidence is electronic devices. If there's a drug-related issue, we always have police officers working in tandem with us, and the evidence is moved to them. We did this a few years ago where no drugs came back to the probation department. We're moving that to the police department. So for us, we're keeping things that need to be held for a violation of probation or are going to be transferred to the state police, the sheriff's department, or DEA or FBI for forensic analysis. That is what we're looking to keep, and that's what we're looking to hold on to. But I would like to use that room for the firearms and the evidence because the same officers are going into those rooms. I can track it better. It's probably the best option that we have at this point.
Do you have, inside that room, would you have an additional safe for the weapons, additional storage?
Yes.
Security for the weapons?
Yes. And that's something I'd like to purchase out of our existing budget. I'm looking at quotes now. Whenever I get those and we're ready to move with Buildings and Grounds, I'll be discussing that a little further.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Dan? Mike?
Everything's going well. I don't have a lot to update from last month. Courts are returning to live appearances, the local courts, that is, and family court also will be returning to a mix of live and virtual appearances. So I expect March to be a mix of continuing virtual and starting live appearances. Everything's going well, and I can provide a more detailed department update next month, unless anybody has any questions.
Mike, you're all settled into your new space? Everything
Yes.
is up, working well?
It is. Thank you.
Any questions for Mike? Okay. Tony, up to bat.
Good afternoon. So on our agenda, we have our annual submission of our proposed spending plan for forfeiture funds. This is a request of the county. Historically, it was a request of the county, and now is in some form or fashion required by the state. So we were ahead of our time in terms of how we manage the process. We won't spend all of this money, but this is how we would be seeking permission over the course of the coming year to spend our forfeiture funds. In my 8th year now, the one good thing I can say for certain, because I used to have to answer it somewhat tentatively for Supervisor Half or speculatively, I guess, but all of the forfeiture funds we have taken over the past 7+ years have come through actual arrests with conviction, and in every instance but one, an agreement with defense court and ourselves regarding the forfeiture of the money. The one that wasn't was a bunch of evidence that was in our evidence locker from prior to my time that was involved in a mass burglary. And there's a bunch of items we didn't know who they belonged to, where they went. Some were criminal transaction items, others belonged to the defendants themselves. So we had to do that through a court proceeding so that we could clarify what got returned to the defendants upon their release from prison and what would be sold and liquidated. So seeking approval of this plan.
And Tony, the funds that you don't use, they roll over or they stay
Correct.
in the account?
Yep.
I need a motion to accept District Attorney Jordan's spending plan for forfeited funds for 2020. Do I have a motion to move that forward? Dave, do I have a second? Dana? Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? On to the next, Tony.
Yes, so Division of Criminal Justice Services has finally announced an award of a grant opportunity that was included in the 2020-2021 budget. I need approval to seek the funding. Will take some form of a reimbursement of monies expended by the county on discovery and pretrial services in terms of release, which is the monies Sue mentioned earlier, which comes from the attendance by alternatives to incarceration at our CAP court and a few other designated courts. So working with Al Nolet to come up with all of the appropriate figures so we can pull it all together. It's called a discovery grant, but it goes far beyond that. But what it really amounts to is a reimbursement to the county for money spent, and there'll probably be a small portion, depending on how we're able to work the numbers, that may go to the local law enforcement agencies, but we haven't been able to get through that yet. So just need your approval to move forward on this.
Any strings attached to this grant, Tony?
No. Once we had a conversation with Commissioner Green today, a few of us, and once they approve what we submit, they write a check, and I'm assuming it goes to the general fund. But it's not a typical reimbursement grant that Al's used to seeing, where there's all sorts of vouchering that has to happen. So once they approve it, they send us a check. Hopefully there's some of this will continue in the future, but there's certainly no guarantees. And I think it's right around $193,000, something like that.
And this is for funds we've already expended.
Yes, 2020 through, so April 1, 2020 through March 31 of this year.
Need a motion to grant approval for District Attorney's Office to apply for the grant. Dave, do I have a second? Sue? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Moving along. Anything else, Tony?
I should have mentioned first, good news is we've been told the money's there, which is unusual for grants. Often it's if the money's there and you comply, you might get it. We've been told the money's actually there. So once we comply, then we'll get the money. But at least supposedly the money's in the bank.
Well, hopefully no one tells the governor the money's there. For that.
Yep.
Any questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony.
Yep, the only thing I would add is, if I could add, we have, just as to office, we have 2 trials, felony trials scheduled to start March 22nd. So when they say we're up and running, then it's certainly not as normal, but we are returning in a vengeance with operations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other business? Do you have a motion to adjourn? Sue, seconded by Dana. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.